So stop saying bad things.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Good morning, everyone.
Good morning.
Good morning.
I'm guessing you are all Zoom experts by now, but just in case, you are able to mute and unmute yourself, so some of you are doing really well. You're also able to rename yourself, so in case you're coming on as something different than what you want to be seen as, please feel free to.
Ashley, I like your background. You just popped up on the top. I love that.
I'm a huge Harry Potter fan.
Okay. Well, we'll talk about that later. So am I. For all of those who are joining, if you want to go ahead and introduce yourselves in the chat box, please feel free to do so. We're not going to do introductions because we have almost 100 participants in this meeting. So we'll just do introductions of ICCP and ICSPS staff. But if everyone else wants to introduce themselves in the chat box, please do so. Amy, we'll go ahead and give everyone a couple more minutes to log on. Looks like we only have about half of the participants joined so far, so.
I think that's a good call.
All right, good morning, everyone. I think we are going to go ahead and get started. I'm hoping that everyone was able to log in okay. I just got a text from someone saying that they can't get in. So hold on just 1 second, all right.
And Tasha, it is now a direct link, so they don't need to sign in.
Okay, great, thank you, Amy. All right, so I think we'll go ahead and get started. If you're just joining, please feel free to introduce yourself in the chat pane. Should I go ahead and start sharing my screen, Amy?
Yes, please do.
Okay. All righty, so I'm going to share my screen here. All right, can everyone see my PowerPoint?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, perfect. All right, so good morning, everyone, and welcome to this meeting on professional development update. And we also have something exciting planned that we are starting in January, which I will dive into here in a minute. My name is Natasha Allen, and I'm the Director for Career and Technical Education at the Illinois Community College Board. So for today, we'll just do quick welcome and introductions, and we'll just go ahead and introduce any ICCP staff who are on the line, as well as staff from the Illinois Center for Specialized Professional Support. And then we'll dive right into talking about our new Programs of Study Approval Cohort. And then we will hear from ICSPS about the upcoming professional development they have planned for the springtime. I also just want to take a second and let everyone know that I spent an inordinate amount of time trying to put this GIF into this slide. So I hope that everyone appreciates it. I'm a big Office fan, so. All right, so as I said, my name is Natasha Allen. And if we have anyone else from ICCB on the line, please feel free to unmute yourself quickly and just give everyone a quick introduction.
Good morning, everybody. This is Nicole Jerger, CTE, Associate Director for CTE at the Illinois Community College Board. I'm happy to see everybody today. It feels like it's been a while since we've all been together in some sort, so it's nice to see everybody today.
Hi, my name's Janelle Jones, and I'm another Associate Director for CTE at ICCB.
Good morning. I'm Ann Story, and I am another Associate Director for CTE at ICCB as well.
Hi, I'm Deja Luckett, and I'm the Research Analyst at the CTE Division.
All right, great. Thank you so much, everyone. Hey, Amy, would you want to go ahead and send out another invite, the one you sent yesterday, just because I think people who maybe registered today might not have gotten that email. Whitney's saying she didn't get that email, so I will forward this to her. Hold on 1 second. Sorry, everyone. Okay.
Hey, Tasha, I was trying to log in on an earlier link sent, and it's just said that another meeting was in progress. So I just kind of kept digging until I found the one that worked. So there might be some folks like that too.
Okay, probably. Thanks, Brad. And I know that there was an issue with the Zoom platform, so that's why Amy had to send that new link yesterday. But hopefully everyone can get on here eventually. Oops. All right, so thanks everyone from ICCB for introducing yourselves. ICSPS, did you introduce yourselves? I was half listening. I was trying to forward this invite.
No, I don't think we did. Here, I'll turn my camera on there so you can see me. My name is Brittany Boston. I am the Associate Director for Equity and Outreach at ICSPS. And we may have lost Amy Julian here for a minute. She lives out in the country, so As she says, if the squirrels are not running fast enough, her internet kind of cuts out, but.
Okay, well, she'll introduce herself later, so we won't think too much about that. All right, thank you everyone for introducing yourselves. And as I said a couple times earlier, if you haven't already, please feel free to introduce yourself in the chat box, and we will move right along here. Okay, so the biggest reason for this convening today is to sort of kick off our new program of study approval cohorts. So we heard all your questions and concerns and your want and need for some additional information about this new program of study approval process that we have to do by law. So a big shout out to our esteemed colleague, Patty Zuccarello at Joliet Junior College for really honing this model and being the leader at her institution for developing this program of study approval cohort. So Patty, we did sort of steal this design a little bit, but we are giving you props. So hopefully you're not too upset with us.
I'll send you a bill.
Thanks, Patty. All right, so just a little bit of background about the approval process. I'm sure most of you are somewhat familiar with this by now, but just in case. So as I did just say, this process is new to Perkins 5, and we're just implementing it for this fiscal year 21. So in order for CTE programs to be funded with Perkins dollars, programs must be meet or be working toward the state definition of size, scope, and quality in order to be deemed a program of study. And you can find that definition in the Illinois Perkins 5 state plan, as well as within the Perkins of Study Expectations tool. So what does that mean in terms of timeline? So between July 1st of this year through June 30th of 2022, institutions can fund CTE programs with federal Perkins funds and be working towards meeting that definition of size, scope, and quality. However, by July 1st of 2022, which is the start of fiscal year 23, by that third year, in order to continue to be eligible for these federal Perkins funds, a CTE program must meet the size, scope, and quality criteria, meet that definition of a program of study under Perkins 5, and also be approved by the ICCB by submitting a program of study approval form. And I did just want to note that approval forms can be submitted at any point during the fiscal year. So what should be submitted with this approval form? And I just wanted to say that all of this information can be found within the approval form itself. But so when you're looking at the approval form, next to each of the 9 quality components, there's a blank box. And that's where you would put a narrative description of how you meet each of those 9 quality components, as well as providing evidentiary support for how your program of study is actually meeting that definition of size, scope, and quality, as well as the definition of program of study under Perkins 5. So size and scope are both incorporated into the quality component. So you don't have to write a narrative or specifically provide evidence letting us know how you're meeting that size and scope criteria, because those are included in the quality components. And then, as I said, each of the 9 quality components is listed within the approval form. And the quality components also incorporate the Perkins 5 definition of a program of study. So you don't need to, for each of your programs, pull out, okay, this is how it's meeting the definition of a program of study. All of those components are incorporated into those 9 quality components. So where does the expectations tool fall into that? So the Perkins of Study Expectations tool, which was revamped and revitalized by ICSPS, they did a wonderful job. That expectations tool provides examples of the supporting evidence, the acceptable supporting evidence that we will accept, letting us know how you are meeting each of those 9 quality criteria components. The Perkins of Study Expectations tool also does a good job of explaining what we're looking for in terms of each of the 9 quality components and sort of our expectations for how you can meet those. A tip is to complete the approval form in conjunction with completing the Programs of Study Expectations tool. So enter the Programs of Study approval cohorts. And we are pretty excited about this, so I hope that you all appreciate and get a lot out of it, as we hope that you do. All right, so what are these Programs of Study approval cohorts? So the purpose of the cohort is to assist colleges in navigating the Programs of Study approval process, which is again new to FY21. Each meeting, participants will review a component of the Programs of Study Expectations tool, doing a deep dive into that component, ICCB's expectations for that component, as well as the acceptable supporting materials. Each of the cohorts will be led by your ICCB CTE liaison, and I do have a slide later on in the presentation. If you're unsure of who your CTE liaison is, I have it broken down. So the end goal of the cohort is to have all necessary information to complete a Program of Study approval form or forms at your fingertips and at your disposal. Participants will be able to share thoughts and ideas as well as voice questions and concerns. And I apologize, I should have said this at the beginning of the meeting, but if you have questions, please feel free to type them into the chat pane. If you would rather voice your question, please wait till the end of this Program of Study section of the meeting. All right, so in addition, participants will be encouraged to complete homework after each of the cohort meetings, the results of which can be shared out at the next meeting. With Joliet's model, they did require all of their faculty members to complete that homework each meeting. However, we thought it might be a pretty big ask to require that. So it is encouraged, but not mandatory. So please keep that in mind. Homework, homework may include any of the following: determining the extent to which a program meets any given quality component, identifying the evidence you will need to collect in order to meet that component, as well as identifying any resources or tools at your institution that you can utilize. As I said, homework will not be mandatory. However, the intention of the cohort is to complete the Programs of Study Expectations tool gradually, gathering and collecting evidentiary support along the way, as opposed to attempting to do so all at once. So, you know, part of the reason why we're doing this is so every couple weeks you can complete another portion of the expectations tool, as well as another portion of the approval form, as opposed to doing it all at one time, which is sometimes a little overwhelming. Again, those who complete their homework will probably be better poised to submit a completed approval form at the end of the cohort. So you might be asking yourself, who really needs to be involved in this cohort? So it is required, if you choose to join the cohort, that the Perkins administrator, as well as any CTE faculty and or deans of a CTE program. The approval form should not be completed in a silo by the Perkins administrator. So we do expect that each college includes at least one CTE faculty member or dean to participate with them in the cohort. It is also optional that you can ask any other college administrator or staff who need to be involved in that process of getting your program of study approved, that it's optional if they want to be on the cohort as well. So please be intentional about who you invite to join the cohort. Don't water down your participation by inviting faculty from every single CTE program at your college. Before the cohort begins in January, please determine the priority programs of study that you want to be approved, and then invite those faculty members and or deans, because they're really the ones who are going to know in depth those programs. So our expectations for the cohort, we really ask that you be present and engaged. The success of these cohorts relies heavily on participation from you and also your willingness to make the most of the opportunity and the information being provided to you. If you begin the cohort, please see it to its completion. The sessions will be recorded, but please make every effort to join the sessions in real time, because I think that's how you'll get the most out of it. You'll be able to ask those real-time questions and also get that real-time interfacing with your other colleagues. So this cohort it's not required for all of the colleges to join this cohort. This is not a requirement, but it is highly encouraged because we really think it will be extremely beneficial for you in completing these forms and hopefully take care of most of your questions and concerns. And also these cohorts are intended for post-secondary folks only. Okay, so some of the meeting specifics. This is a 10-week cohort. All meetings will be held on Fridays from 10 a.m. to 11 a.m. Beginning January 8th, the cohorts will meet every other Friday. And meetings will be held on the Microsoft Teams platform. Again, as I said earlier, your cohort coincides with who your ICCB CTE liaison is. And if you don't know who that is, I believe it's the next slide. I have that laid out. Before the first meeting, please send your liaison a list of the individuals who will be participating as a part of your college team, as well as what programs they represent. Just so we have sort of a running list of all those individuals who are participating. And so at the end of the cohort, we can sort of share out contact information and those types of things. So here are your cohort groups. As I've said a couple of times, they coincide with who your ICCB CTE liaison is. So cohort 1, your liaison is Nicole. Cohort 2, your liaison is Janelle. And cohort 3, your liaison is Anne. We will be providing this PowerPoint as well as a recording of this meeting. So don't feel like you need to rush and write down who all your fellow cohort members are. And here is the cohort meeting schedule. As I said, there are 10 weeks meeting every other week. And then next to each week and date is what component will be discussed. So like the first meeting on the 8th, the liaisons will be discussing size and scope, excuse me. The next week, or a couple weeks after that on the 15th, we'll be discussing quality component number 1, which is development and engagement, so etc. All right, and then we have some resources listed out for you here, like the expectations tool, the approval form, Perkins 5 law, as well as the Illinois state plan for Perkins 5. And then here is our ICCB CTE staff contact information, excuse me. And one thing I forgot to mention earlier that our senior director, Whitney Thompson, asked me to relay to you is that we do have the final models of those first 4 programs of study models that were developed. The final guides are complete and we'll be sending those out today. And we will also send those out as an attachment to the follow-up from this meeting. So please look forward to seeing those. But that is all I have. I know that was very high level. However, the very first meeting on the 8th, your liaisons will take you through a little bit more specifically how each of the specific meetings is going to run and sort of the general format. But do we have any questions in the chat pane, or does anyone want to unmute themselves and ask a question?
Hi, Tasha, this is Nicole. I was just going to remind you and everyone that the first meeting that we do in January, we are going to do as a whole. So all 3 cohorts will be together just so we can keep it uniform for the first meeting and let everyone know how it's going to go and what to expect. And then every week after that, we will be in our 3 separate cohorts.
That's perfect. Thank you, Nicole.
Yeah, I have a question, Natasha. This is Arlene. How are you?
Hi, Arlene. Good. How are you?
I'm good. I'm good. I actually posted the question in the chat,
Okay.
but I always, this is always one thing that, you know, that I want to confirm or want to clarify, just for purposes of making sure that our department chairs, our faculty are very much attuned to what we're doing. So there's a lot of terminologies that are floating around in the CTE world. So can you, maybe if you can just sort of like illustrate the relationship between career pathways and the program of study, then at least our deans and our faculty will be very clear that it's one and the same almost.
Sure, yeah. So I really like to think of it in terms of a program of study as sort of a component of a career pathway. So while they're, not necessarily, they are not, I can't think of the right word I'm trying to think of. They are not the same. However, they are related in the sense that a program of study is a component of a career pathway. And a career pathway is made up of a bunch of different components. But that program of study is really one of the key components that makes that career pathway work.
Good. So it is an integral part. If one has to develop a career pathway, it is absolutely necessary that they have a program of study, right?
Right.
Okay. Sounds good. We heard it from ICCB.
Can I chime in for a second when I think of a program of study, Tasha? Is that okay?
Sure. Yeah.
Okay. And my definition of a program of study, it's a program you're going to be focusing on for that physical year, or with our new work plan, 4 years. And with that program of study, there's a different entity where you really focus on that program. That program is going to excel. Now, just because it's a program of study for that physical year doesn't mean you take your hands off of it. You keep focusing on it for multiple years.
Right. So when you have a fully developed program of study, that program of study will continue to be fully developed. Now, like you said, that doesn't mean once the fiscal year's over, you never look at it again. And it needs to be current. It needs to be evolving and changing. Adding dual credit courses and developing, more articulated curriculum and things like that. But yes, we do ask that you do have a program of study focus each year.
So can I jump in here since we're have a ton of time here, and I know that question is a good one, Arlene, and I responded in the chat that actually Anne and Janelle and I did a presentation at the Forum for Excellence on this particular topic, the difference between a program of study and a career pathway. And I think the confusion is because we have taken the program of study elements and have created through the program of study expectations tool, which is exactly what the CTE staff are going to be walking through very intensively over the next few months. So I hope you're all excited about that. But we've taken that quality program of study definition and we've really incorporated a lot of the elements of a career pathway, which is why there is some confusion. I'm just going to share my screen here quickly because I pulled up the presentation. If I can, if someone can let me do that. Whoever the host is.
I think that had to be Brittany.
Okay, someone let me do it. Thank you. So, some of you were chiming in on sort of the focus for the year, and I don't know if you guys are seeing this.
Yep.
Okay, so this is that presentation we did, and I'm not going to walk through it all, but I just wanted to provide some context because I think this is really critical to understanding the difference. And I'm just going to pull up this particular slide. So a program of study is that secondary to post-secondary sequence of courses that are fully articulated and non-duplicative from high school to the college. That is a program of study. Of course, there's other elements to it, but that is the program of study. It is specific. It is you can almost think about it as like the major, or, if we go back here, the guides, the sample of the guides, you can see here on the right, the welding curriculum, that is a program of study. This whole thing here is a career pathway, right? Because it includes multiple programs of study. So the difference between a program of study and a career pathway is that the program of study is focused specifically on that secondary to post-secondary transition, whereas career pathways is the whole system. It is the on and off ramps from adult education to CTE, thinking about, the community college to university transition, thinking about incumbent worker training, thinking about stackable credentials. It is it is all of those entry and exit points of a career pathway, right? It's inclusive of all, while a program of study is just one specific component, as Tasha was saying, of a career pathway. So think of the career pathway as the universe, right? All of the options, all of the transition points, and then a program of study is that secondary to post-secondary pathway. It is specific.
Whitney, this is probably obviously on the website, right?
Yes, and it's on the ICSPS website because it was a recorded session for the Forum for Excellence. So I don't know if one of my staff or maybe Brittany or whoever from ICSPS is on can drop that link to the recorded sessions from the forum, but yes, it's on there. We walk through all of these particular examples, and I think that's just a really great refresher.
Yes, I'm
Thank you
looking
so much,
for it
Whitney.
now, and I'll include the link to that in the chat here in a few minutes once I find it.
Thank you, Brittany.
Thank
Sorry,
you.
Tasha, for jumping in. I
No,
wanted to
not at
remind
all.
people that we had that presentation available, and Janelle and Ann were instrumental in that.
Yes, thank you so much, Whitney, for doing a very good job of clarifying that.
Tasha, could I ask another quick low-level question, actually?
Yeah.
So would I be writing the team that we're assembling to Nicole, and then Nicole will send out the links to each one of those members that I gave her, the emails that I gave her for the scheduled meetings? Is that how it's going to work?
Yes. So each meeting is going to have the same link, just because since it's a Microsoft Teams, everyone will have like your little team. So it'll be the same link for every single week. So yes, once you compile all the information and send it to Nicole or Janelle or Ann, whoever your liaison would be, then she will compile all the information, send that link out.
Awesome, thanks.
Yeah.
Tasha, this is Joanne. I have a question. So I remember when I was doing Perkins 5, there was a section on program of studies that said that if it was not a dual credit, if it was not something that was offered through dual credit, it couldn't be a program of study. Can you clarify that, please?
Yes. So intrinsic in a program of study is that dual credit component. So if a CTE program does not have any sort of dual credit component, whether that be general education courses or core courses, it cannot be considered a program of study.
Okay, so gen ed is acceptable. Okay, as long as it has a gen ed component to it, then we can use it. Okay.
Right. Yes, because we understand that when you, especially at some maybe smaller high schools or more rural, it's just not going to be feasible for them to have welding 200 or something like that at the high school level. So we do allow for those general education courses to be dual credit as well.
A follow up to that. Thank you so much, Tasha and Dr. Ivory. For the gen ed inclusion, so that it's fine if there's gen eds happening at the high school, and then the next credential at the post-secondary level is the AAS. That's still fine if it's part of the AAS, right? So like English 101's happening at the high school in a dual credit fashion, and that English 101 is part of the AAS, CTE degree, that would constitute as a program of study.
Right. Yes.
Okay. Thanks.
As long as it's really intentional. So, because
Right.
I think you could all say, all these programs are, or most of them are AASs, we're just going to have English and we're good to go. It needs to be really intentional, and you have to be able to sort of rationalize that another option isn't available. So like for a lot of the health programs, you may not be able to have that particular dual credit course in the CTE side, but think about, you need to be working with your secondary partners because they have secondary courses, different levels of secondary courses, like intro to health careers, right? Introduction to education, or whatever that may be, that may not be dual credit, but is part of that curriculum and that intentionality. So again, we want to see intentionality, not just okay, we're going to require English and we're good to go.
Right.
Okay,
Right,
Whitney, I'm sorry, I do have a question. Does this also apply to adult education?
You mean,
In
what way?
terms of what?
In terms of being able to bridge over?
As part of that program of study?
Yes.
That is not one of the required components, no.
Okay.
But we encourage it, yes.
Yes, we do encourage that. Yeah, wherever you can make those connection points, please do so. Yeah, so don't say, don't think, well, that's not required. We don't have to do it. That's one of those things where taking those additional steps and every year sort of working to strengthen that program of study.
Okay. Okay. Thank you, ladies.
You're welcome.
Hi, this is Maria. It's
Hi, Maria.
Hi, I'm glad you can hear me. I've been having problems. So I just want, I've been working with the colleges and I want just some clarity on just a topic of funding. So I know that you are to utilize the funding, targeting the program of study that's going to be approved or approved. However, funds also be used to support all CTE programs, even if the institution decides not to complete an application for the program of study?
So in some capacity you can.
Okay.
However, the law is pretty clear about wanting us to be, like Whitney said, more intentional about where we put our Perkins funding, and really that focus on programs of study. So like when we're thinking about like career technical student organizations, that's something that you would still be able to fund with Perkins funds, even if that CTSO is part of a CTE program and not necessarily a program of study.
And in regards,
did you have anything else to add?
No. And a second part to that question would be for the adult ed. What areas can be utilized Perkins in regards to bridging towards a program of study, Perkins funding on the adult ed side, if any?
So when we're thinking about adult education and CTE, where we want that money to be placed are on those integrated education and training programs or ICAPS programs. If you are working with your adult ed partners on something else, that's something that we're going to want to see that blended or braided funding, as opposed to, Perkins paying for an adult education instructor to go to a conference or whatever it may be. But when we're thinking about those funding streams, we really want you to be focusing on developing those IET programs and those ICAPS programs.
Thank you for the clarification. Appreciate that.
Thank you for the question. Lots of good questions. Thanks, everyone.
I was wondering about like CNA courses. Our CNA courses are dual credit, but they don't, they're not a stackable credential into like our nursing program. It's not a required course for our nursing program. So is that a program of study?
No. Whitney, do you want to expand on that a little bit? I know you've done some professional development on something similar to this.
Yeah, so it would, so we've went back and forth on this one. So I think yes, it would, because it culminates in a post-secondary credential, right? The CNA is a post-secondary credential. However, I think you would need to consider whether in your specific area, if it meets that high wage threshold. Again, we're prioritizing those that are in demand, high wage, and high skill. So oftentimes it doesn't. However, if for some of the colleges, it is part of that nursing pathway. And so that would be fine. But again, those are some of the sort of the elements that are going to have to be local decisions and in terms of if it fits the criteria or not.
Yeah, for Allison, this is Arlene from CLC. Usually what we have is a program of study in nursing, in the AAF nursing. And because CNA course is part of that, it automatically becomes integrated with that program of study for nursing.
Sure.
Mm-hmm.
Really great questions, everyone. Does anyone else have any questions that they want to voice? We have about 5 more minutes before we need to get to ICSPS's portion. So if you have any questions, please feel free to ask.
I have some questions just to make sure that I'm clarifying this appropriately to our faculty who are alarmed because they're going through both the accreditation process and through their program review. And so this is a third review on top of the other ones. A lot of them say they already are programs of study. And so when we talk about this, I usually say that this is a sort of designation or award in order to use Perkins funding, that you're an approved ICCB program of study first, but that this is an additional designation with higher criteria in order to be awarded Perkins funding. Is that an appropriate way to describe it?
I think you can if that's working for you. But just make sure that they are aware that, the reason we're doing this approval process is because of the new Perkins 5 law. They laid that out in the law that we have to be doing this now, approving those programs of study. And also, the definition of program of study is more stringent, as well as we have that new size, scope, and quality criteria. So programs of study that we approved in the past, they were never really officially approved. So yeah, you can let them know that this is like an additional designation, but please make sure that they know that it's different. It's not exactly the same. Does that make sense? Was that Aubrey?
Yeah, this is Aubrey. It's just that they go through the program review process, and this is in addition to that, but really only affects Perkins funding. It doesn't shutter them if they don't get it.
Right. And they don't have to have all these approvals in by this next fiscal year. They have another whole fiscal year to do that. And that's part of the reason why we're doing this cohort, so people can gradually do this approval process and do the expectations tool a little more slowly. But also, so it's like, okay, well, let's just sit down and do it, as opposed to let's wait until a month before it's due, before FY23 starts, and then, we're in a kerfuffle.
And that does bring me to another question, which is we plan on submitting, I think, like 3 applications, but we have more programs than that. Do we have to make some sort of a gesture that the programs we are using Perkins funding on this fiscal year will be submitting within 2 years, so next fiscal year?
So no, I would say no. But that does, bring up something, when we were approving and reviewing your local applications, a lot of you put programs into that program of study inventory form. And after your feedback, or after the feedback that we provided to you, if those weren't removed, we do ask that, okay, so you put these in your inventory form, these need to be formally approved before fiscal year 23. But no, you don't need to show us like a sign of good faith. That's what you're asking, right?
Yeah, that everybody plans on submitting an application before 2023.
Right. You don't need to tell us that, because it's, that's what we expect. So.
Okay.
Thank you. Good questions though. Does anyone else have anything? We have a few more minutes.
I did have one question. How far back should we be looking for evidence?
So the evidence that you use to support, well, I don't know if there is really a time frame for how far back you should be looking. Make sure that it's current and relevant. When you're providing evidence, you don't need to provide like 10 years of evidence. Just something so that we know that, like what you were saying earlier, it's intentional, something that's up to date. It wasn't, relevant 5 years ago. But don't worry so much about, okay, we have one piece of evidence. Let's make sure we have the same evidence for the last 10 years. We don't expect that.
Okay. Natasha, I have a question about funding.
Mm-hmm.
Is there, the formula for allocations for each community college is of course based on the number of concentrators as well as the Pell recipients. Is the Pell really, is that like only an Illinois definition for the formula, or are there other ways of is there another part of the formula that should take into consideration the size of our CTE program per se, not just the Pell recipients?
So that's how we define it in Illinois, like you said. I'm not sure. That's more of a Whitney question. Whitney, is that something that is prevalent across all of the states, or is that something, I'm not sure.
Yeah, Arlene, can you restate your question? I
Yeah,
didn't cover it all the way.
so the current formula for the allocation for Perkins is based on the number of concentrators, CTE concentrators, as well as the number of Pell recipients. So I was wondering if that formula is so restrictive because, like we have a big CTE program, but not everybody is a Pell recipient. So, but we get less money. So because we have less Pell recipients. So I was just wondering if that is an Illinois definition only, or are there other factors that should be considered in that allocation formula?
Yeah, so we are required to fund it based on two things. One, CTE concentrators, right? But also to have some sort of need-based formula in there. And that's where the Pell comes from. That's the best way for us to capture that and the cleanest way to capture that. We understand that Pell can exclude certain folks, and we know that some programs aren't Pell eligible, some are short-term programs. So it's not a perfect formula, but it's common. It is common across other states, but we have to have that need-based component in there.
Thank you, Whitney. All right, I think right now we're going to go ahead and get started with ICSPS's portion of updating us about upcoming professional development, and I'm sure there'll be a couple of minutes at the end of that. So if you have more questions, please hold. But again, we had our contact information in that last slide, and we're always available to answer any questions. I did just want to say also that we are not in the office right now. So please continue to email us. That's the best way to get a hold of us. So, all right, with that, I will turn it over to Amy and Brittany.
Thank you, Natasha, and I apologize for my slight technical issues earlier. We have put together some great professional development for you as we move forward. And just to those of you who don't know who we are the Illinois Center for Specialized Professional Support, and we support ICCB in professional development around equity, programs of study, career pathways, and all of those exciting issues. So our next slide is really looking at what we have on a menu, and we have a PDF that's been put together, and I think that's in the chat somewhere, but we'll be sure to send that out to everybody again. And so what we have on the menu coming up for winter and moving into spring is we have 3 different big topics that we're going to be covering. We have super strategies for supporting special populations. We have some great autism training and technical assistance webinars that are coming up. And then in addition to that, we have support for trauma-informed education in post-secondary, which we've affectionately named STEP. And so we'll start with the first, which is the super strategy. And yes, that is Brittany's avatar.
Can you see the resemblance, guys? But yes, we are in the process of doing an in-depth webinar series for what we affectionately term our super strategies for special populations. So under Perkins 5, we've had some updates to our special populations. We've had some new members join our wonderful party here. And so we are in the process of doing bi-monthly webinars that is taking a deeper dive into each specific special population. And these are appropriate for both the secondary and post-secondary systems. And we discuss ways to recruit students into CTE programs. And when we're talking about the secondary system, more ways to inform students about CTE. And then also looking at those specific supports and services that certain special population students may need in addition to what we already provide for them in order to help them be successful in the CTE program, and not only for educational purposes, but also when they continue on through their career. And so all of their webinars are being recorded. So I think we've done 3 or 4 already. So those are on our website, and we will continue. Our next one is December 15th. And then we'll continue after the winter break through March. So we are sending out email blasts for those as well. So if you have not already registered for some, please feel free to jump on our website and get yourself registered.
Well, and as I said, we will be sharing, I think it's in the chat somewhere, but I'll be sure to email it out to everyone on the call so you have this information on the super strategy, because it's a really great resource. And if you haven't seen the documents themselves, check those out on our website. And we're also happy to snail mail, old school, send those out to you if you'd like to have them physically in your office or home. The next thing we want to talk about is the webinars that we're doing for the Autism Training and Technical Assistance Project. And ATA has monthly webinars that take place on the second Tuesday of each month at 10 a.m. So we just wrapped one up yesterday. We have been featuring different topics month to month. We invited and had Autonomy Works talk about the work that they've done with individuals on the spectrum and how to really look at employability skills for individuals on the spectrum. And that was in November. Just yesterday, we talked about what the parent perspective is on transition. So what are those barriers that parents encounter as they're transitioning into post-secondary, and how we can be better equipped as parents. We have a lot of different communities that we look at for the Autism Training and Technical Assistance. The primary focus of this project is to assist individuals on the spectrum in transitioning from secondary into either post-secondary or the workplace. And so moving forward on January 12th, we'll be looking at transitioning to employment. And then we have some colleges that we're focusing, some great community colleges, and some of you might be on the call now, looking at transitioning to post-secondary education on February 9th. So just want to make you aware of those, and be sure you're checking out our website as those are being finalized all the way through June. So every month we have one the second Tuesday of each month at 10 a.m. The next series that we're putting together for you is looking at support for trauma-informed education in post-secondary systems, and this is what we're affectionately calling STEM. This will be designed not only for all of you as Perkins administrators, but also your student support individuals and your adult education providers. It is designed to support groups and individuals to increase trauma-informed practices and support learners and educators' resilience in post-secondary and adult education contexts. We've put together a 5-part series. The first time we get together, we're going to talk about how does trauma affect us, learning, and our program goals. Then we're going to move into discussions around chronic stress, trauma, and resilience during the pandemic. From there, we're going to move into trauma and resilience in the context of poverty. And then finally, we're going to look historically at trauma, bias, and resilience of communities. After those series are wrapped up, we have a short break, and then we really look at the idea of a check-in on the progress meter. So what does that look like? How have we come together? What things have we done? And again, that series starts February 4th. All the information is on our website, and concludes April 29th is that final. So we go February 4th, February 11th, February 18th, February 25th, and then April 29th is our final for that one. The other groups that were put together are just, and this is our next slide, is really looking at some additional responsive sessions. And these were sessions that have come up from all of you. So again, if there's ever something that you want to see or something that you're interested in, let us know, because we do enjoy putting things together that are customized to meet your needs. So what we've heard from the system is there are 2 areas that we really want to have a little bit deeper dive in. One is how to identify and address hidden bias on your campus. And so we're going to be looking into that on April 7th. And then on March 24th, we'll be looking into teaching tips for online instruction and engagement, and just kind of a refresher there. We will be working to pilot test the tips. We talked about this at the Forum for Excellence. We've, of course, in the era of COVID, bureaucracy does not die. So we have had some issues with paperwork and getting everything lined up, but that is moving forward now. And we'll be pilot testing beginning in January. We're not going to start anything right as we go into the holidays, but colleges will be being reached out to get on the list for pilot testing. And if you are interested, we do invite you to follow up and let us know. If we haven't contacted you in the next week or so, you will be hearing from us. And then finally, we would like to show you our website. If you haven't seen it since the pandemic, it does look a lot different. We've remodeled it to align with ISU's framework and then be able to showcase some of the great work we're doing. So we invite you to visit us at ICSPS. And then finally, there is just a little post any questions in the chat, and we'll see if there's any questions that you have.
Thank you so much.
I see a lot of
Amy,
discussion, but I don't know if it's don't see if there's any questions for us, Tasha. Thank you.
No, we did have a couple of comments about especially the added trainings and how great and helpful they are. We did have a couple individuals ask if they could be more involved in those types of things. So I will connect with you about that, Amy.
Yes.
But if anyone else has any questions, please, again, feel free to reach out to us. We have a couple more minutes if someone wants to unmute themselves and ask a question. Otherwise, I really hope that you all find this extremely helpful, and we're really excited to get these cohorts started. And we hope that, they're addressing your concerns and your needs. So
one of the last things I would like to just touch on real quick, and I didn't put it in our slide deck, so that's my fault, my apologies. We did a series more as part of our IET and ICAPS programming around recruitment, retention, and engagement. And we really focused on, it was also in part of our directive as part of adult ed. Those are great recordings though. If you have not or did not attend those, I really encourage you to look at that if you're struggling or looking for innovations around recruitment, engagement, and retention for your students, because not only do we look at evidence-based practices, but we also dove into how each of the programs are using that. So showcasing what your peers are doing in those 3 areas. So if you haven't checked those out, I encourage you to do so. And if you do want to be involved in any of the PD, let us know. We're always happy to have those discussions.
all right, we're letting you out 5 minutes early, so you have 5 more minutes added back to your day. But again, we appreciate everyone for being so engaged and asking so many questions. And again, we hope that these cohorts are extremely helpful, as well as all the other wonderful professional development that ICSPS always puts on. So with that, everyone have a great rest of December, have a great holiday season, and please stay safe and well. Bye, everyone.
Thank you, ladies, for everything.
Yes, thank you.
Thank you.